Welcome to Self Wellness.
I hope you guys had a fantastic early part of your day, and I hope you're going to enjoy the rest of your day. Today on Maha with Mike, we're going to be diving into a topic that's a little bit scary and probably one that you're usually not comfortable with. It does not have a lot to do with general wellness, but it does have to do with human rights. And it has to do with exploring the narrative that quite possibly our Lord and Savior might be coming back a little sooner than you think. Welcome to today's show. I want to let you guys know that the guy that I'm first going to be bringing on, incredible human being, human rights advocate. I consider him a journalist because he documents so much of the atrocities that you're seeing across the world right now. But more importantly, he is one of the greatest relief coordinators that has probably ever walked the face of this earth. And he has been working tirelessly to bring attention to religious freedom in humanitarian crises. In Syria recently, we had Christian communities that are facing not only increased threats, but in the middle of June, there was a devastating suicide bombing during evening prayers at the Greek Orthodox Church that was in Damascus. This was attributed to Islamic State militants and left at least 22 dead and dozens wounded, tearing apart families and places of worship. But the violence didn't stop there. The very next month, in the southern province of Suwada, home to many Christians and became a battleground, the Greek Melkite Church of St. Michael in a nearby village was set ablaze. These attacks underscore a bleak reality. Syrian Christians are not only grieving in the aftermath of terror, but they are also confronting ongoing threats of displacement, fear, insecurity amidst a fractured and unpredictable landscape. Joining us today is Steve Slepcevic, whose work, whether documenting these atrocities, coordinating aid, or advocating for religious minorities, has been vital in shining a light on these urgent crises. Steve, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to the show.
It's so good to see you.
To see you. It's so good to hear that, you know, your reach is so much more than just the United States. People don't realize that, you know, when the duty calls, if there is a plane or a helicopter or a rocket ship to get you to another country where you can lend help, you show up. And I think that's one of the greatest things about, you know, your humble humanitarian effort is that when God puts a calling on you to help those that are in desperate need, you don't ask why, you ask when.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it really just, like I always tell every one of my team members, just do the spiritual work, right? The main thing is to actually stay tuned in because God will prompt you. And whenever I get that prompting and the Spirit just comes down and says, hey, this is where you deserve to go, I don't have the whole plan. There is really no plan. And it's really strengthened my faith in God. I mean, I've been doing this since 1989. And each step of the way, every time I've hesitated, I've noticed how things just didn't work. And so in my earlier years, I started to learn really fast that if I simply tuned in, the response was just going to be effective and he was going to lead it. All I had to do was trust in him, trust in my faith, and lean into the unknown. And the answer would come when the time was right. So, you know, you bring up the stuff with Sueda in Syria. We got a call on a Sunday night. And by Monday morning, we were wheels up, headed for Israel. And the issue was there are Christians and Druze being slaughtered in Syria in a place called Sueda. I never knew who the Druze were. I didn't even know where Sueda was on the map, you know? I just knew that something said, you got to go. Like, so right away, I cleared my calendar, moved all kinds of meetings. And by the next morning, like I said, we were in Israel. We touched down in Tel Aviv. Right from the airport, went straight to a hospital in Jerusalem, met with a little girl who was shot in the face. Her entire family was killed. Got to see her, got to talk to her. And this little girl was still in shock, even though she saw her whole family, including her father, killed in front of her. And she was there asking, like, hey, can you have my father come? because I'm very lonely here, right? Um, Talking to the doctors, right, and just finding that that hospital that's in Sueda of 700,000 people was completely surrounded, and they were running out of medical anesthesia, even the blades for doing amputations of the Druze soldiers that were getting shot.
Could you disconnect?
And doing that type of, handling that type of scenario. Um, so watching a village that got overrun by these Islamic terrorists that came in, the stories that we heard going from there, from that hospital, that little girl, to another hospital where a mom was trying to get out of she heard the gunfire, they heard the explosions, there was tanks rolling through their town, there was drones dropping bombs. There was a mom with her 8-year-old, her 5-year-old boy, her 9 and 11-year-old boy, and her husband. And they jumped in a little minivan and they tried to get out of town. Now, what people don't understand is this can happen in America. People are completely complacent. They're like, okay, but that's in Syria. That has nothing to do with me. Every time in every disaster or crisis zone I've responded to, I look at the model of what happened and can that happen elsewhere? This mom is trying to get out of town. And as she's heading towards the exit of the part of the town that she knows, they start taking sniper rounds. The sniper shoots her husband in the neck, shoots him in the head. He completely slumps over, dies there. She pulls up right out of the driver's seat, slides into the driver thing with the kids. She's trying to save her kids now. Whips the van around and starts heading for another exit of town. As she gets to that other exit of town, there's a van that's parked on a small hillside right there, and there's 4 gunmen that just start opening up machine gun fire. She loses control of her vehicle. Now we're talking to this mom, where she's telling us the whole story. Her loses control of the vehicle. The vehicle rolls 4 times. Her 5-year-old gets ejected out of the car, gets shot in the stomach. Her daughter, her 8-year-old, who's sitting there in the hospital, and her boy that we interviewed, that we met with, multiple shots to the leg. The mom shots to the arm because she's trying to protect the kids as she's trying to hold one of the boys, and he's the kid that got shot in the stomach. When the vehicle stopped the rollover, the 2 boys, a 9 and 11-year-old, try to grab their dad and pull him out of the vehicle. And the gunmen run up and they say, boy, you better start running, the 2 boys, or we're going to kill you. So they start shooting at their feet. And the boys start running off down the road and zigzagging. They shot one of the boys in the shoulder, but the 2 boys actually got away. And they were safe when we had talked to the mom in a place where they've sheltered them. And what I found very sad was, and shocking, was the mom was telling us that the assailants, these terrorists, were actually videotaping her and saying, look around you. Look what Israel did. Look, they shot these people and we're taking them to the hospital. And then they take the mom and the little girl and little boy and they put them in a van and they drive them to a nearby hospital in Sueda and drop them off with the video. And she was like, oh my God, am I living in how is this even possible? These are the people that actually shot my husband. This is the person who's shooting me, my boys. And these guys don't speak the language that has a dialect of Sueda. They're not even from there. They're foreign fighters, part of Al Qaeda, part of the ISIS terrorist network. And it's interesting because a lot of the misinformation that I see going out there is really kind of geared towards giving Israel and the Jewish people a bad name. But meanwhile, all these Druze that they're being treated are being treated in Israel, just outside of Syria, which that area of Sueda is near the southern tip of Syria, that borders right there where Israel's at, in an area where they're catching a lot of these people in a place called Hadar, which they have an outpost. So anyway, aside from all the interviews, we went and met with the Druze leader that's on the Israeli side, and got information from them, from IDF, from Mossad, from all the guys, gathered all types of intel, went back to Jerusalem. There was a group of congressmen that had come into town, and we brought the Druze leader, the whole group got together, and we briefed the congressmen on what had happened at that time. And it was an effort of multiple people coming together, some amazing congressmen that listened to it, reached out to the State Department, reached out to Huckabee. We then met with Huckabee, briefed him on what was going on. And within a few days, we were pushing into Syria, got permission to take a convoy into Syria in the IDF controlled zone to Hadar, where the Israelis, the Jewish people, were bringing in massive amounts of humanitarian aid, and the Druze were coming down to the area that they could get into, and then picking up humanitarian supplies, medical supplies, whatever it is that they could to get back into that area. So over 2,000 people were slaughtered, massacred. There's over 100 women still missing. And they put out a statement from the ISIS terrorist group saying, don't come looking for our women. Don't worry, we'll bring them back in 9 months with our children. They threw babies off the roofs. They were cutting the hearts out of these young men that were still alive. The videos that were so grotesque. They went and shot all the doctors, nurses, and patients in an entire hospital. Total massacre. And then one of the strongest things that I saw was the Christians and the Druze literally fighting side by side. And if you know who the Druze are, they're from a lineage of Jethro, which was the brother-in-law from Moses who rehabilitated him. And they're not Christian, they're not Jewish, they're not Muslim. They have their own faith, but they're the kindest, most loving people who are all about assimilation and working, whether they're working with the Serbian government, the Syrian government, or they're working with the Israeli government. Some of the best IDF soldiers are Druze soldiers. So it was just shocking to see how this thing unfolded, and how this could actually happen in America. I mean, 3,200 mosques. I don't have an issue with Islam or Muslims, right? But if you're a true believer in Islam, right, you don't coexist with the infidels, right? Your job is to overtake that. And I'm not about PC. If your religion teaches you that you are to kill me, I have a problem with that, and I'm not going to be the one to stand by and not say nothing, right? Because in my world, we dealt with that firsthand. My family's from Serbia. So my own uncles on my father's side all got killed Orthodox Christmas Eve. They were Serbian Orthodox at the dinner table in their village for protecting the villagers fighting the communists and the Ustaše, which were part of the Nazi regime that were the Croatians, and they were the ones also protecting the downed U.S. airmen, which was the greatest rescue mission in history, called the Halyard mission. So when you see these things, how they unfold, if we don't pay attention to it, I saw how this town got overrun. If you don't learn how to train and protect your family, you become part of the victims that can rise when that time is right to roll through it, so people really need to pay attention.
One of the craziest things, Steve, is people always think that this is so distant, right? You allow these Islamic extremist groups, and like you said, we're not sitting here bashing a Muslim religion. We're talking about extremist groups, and if they identify with a philosophy that they should kill another set of people based on their feeling or based on what they're called to or based on their religion, I mean, you're talking about 1.5 million Christians back in 2010 in Syria, and now it's less than 300,000. They went from 10% to 2% of the population. They are thinning out the Christian faith in that region of the world. And you've seen it firsthand. You've been on the streets after Maui. You've been on the streets after the fires in the Palisades. We are only one incident away from being the same thing that you're seeing happening over in Syria. It's not so far-fetched, and I think that's 100% right, in what you're saying, that people need to be prepared. They need to have their strategies. How do you survive? I think if you put people through a real-world scenario, and I know some of the scenario training that you've been through, you've told me, when you go into those controlled, like kind of like a police state zone building where you walk in and they're testing your response. Most Americans would not know what to do if a gun was fired next to them, let alone if there was a strategic attack with snipers and people in vans. They do not realize how close you guys have even come to death. just being over there trying to help. And I can imagine that when you're here in the stateside, the level of protection that you have is different when you travel, right? You don't get to bring all of your firearms. You're relying on a lot of the government agencies over there and working with the local groups there to protect your guys.
Yeah, and we have operators in that country, that have the permissions to carry. So it is very challenging to move in and out of those zones specifically for that. I mean, if you just look at like going back to like if you look at Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem 10 years ago was 90% Jewish, 10% Islam. Now it is 90% Islam, 10% Jewish that live in Bethlehem, right? So just look at that short time. They destroyed 36 villages in that Syria of Sweda area, burned 5 Christian churches, right? So I'm sitting there going, okay, where's the Christian community? Why is this not mainstream news, right? I'm working with the team to go in there to rehab these churches that they burned. Why? Because I've been in the fire restoration business, got 2,700 vendors, that a group of them are going to just want to go in there and just redo them and rehab them and make them better than they were before. But the story goes back to the little kids, the Christian kids, that when the terrorists came in threatening them and said, denounce your God, or we're going to kill all of you in the name of Allah Akbar, you know what I mean? And in the name of Muhammad, these little kids, you know what they did? The little kids are like, no, we're not going to do it. And in unison, they all started singing songs of worship.
Beautiful.
Right? So when you see how these people were butchered, how they were killed, and how these guys are apex predators, they are not warriors. They're the scum of the earth. And to me, I have zero tolerance for that. And when people say, oh yeah, I got a gun, I'm like, yeah, you go to Guitar Center and buy a guitar. Doesn't make you a musician. Better get your training in. You know what I mean? And when you see how the news starts to spin things, especially with the recent event with this, the shooter, the transgender. No, let's not look at the transgender. Let's not look at the mental illness. Let's not look at the drugs that he's taking. It's the gun. It's the gun that killed the people. No. People kill people. But let's go ahead and ban assault rifles. Let's ban firearms. That's just the beginning of the only people you're banning is the actual law-abiding citizens. Right? You're going to arm the people who are going to be like, oh, they banned a gun, so I can't go get a gun. Right? You can listen. As a teenager growing up in the hood in LA, I picked up a gun right off the street. Right? This is back in the day. I didn't know any better. I'm like, hey, I don't want to get jacked in my neighborhood because people getting the carjacked. They're getting their phones or pagers back in the day stolen. I didn't want to be one of those victims. Right? And I almost got carjacked myself. But I always kept the gun under my seat. And then later on, I just turned it into law enforcement, one of those gun buybacks days. And then later on, it's kind of crazy how did everything legally and now own one of the most elite private security contractors in the world. It's interesting how that whole dynamic changes quite quickly.
It just reminds me of, like you saying that, the guns kill people. And it's like, is Ford going to take credit when a drunk driver gets behind the wheel, right? Is Big Pharma going to take, the credit for when a spoon makes somebody fat? It's all of these actions. And we do know that a lot of it does have to do with mental health, and a lot of it does have to do with the drugs that these people are taking. And unfortunately, these pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be diving. Can you talk to us a little bit about the affair of Syria and the cities that you were visiting when you left? Are the groups there right now? Are they starting to get their strengths back together? I was reading on one article that there's a group of like 500 Christian men that have been patrolling the neighborhoods and like doing like neighborhood watch and really trying to be alert and be prepared. But when you hear the story of what that woman was saying, that her own people, were being told, oh, we're going to blame this attack on Israel. We're going to blame this attack, and they were the ones responsible for killing her husband and, shooting bullets at her children. What was the affair of the Syrian cities when you left? And are we seeing any hope? I mean, we always want to look for hope.
Yeah, so Netanyahu just recently signed an agreement with the Druze to provide additional protection for them and humanitarian support. And it's interesting because when the whole Syria collapse happened, right, with the former prime minister leaving, Assad left to Russia. Assad was fighting Al Jalani, which is Al Shara, and that terrorist group. And then when that collapsed, he came into power, and the U.S. has been trying to work with him. The State Department has been trying to work with him to create kind of a stable Syria. But that when it first collapsed, they saw huge mobilization to go wipe out that area and ethnically cleanse that area because they want a one Islam Muslim country, right? They don't want to coexist. Is what really happened, and so the Druze don't trust Damascus, that leadership that's out of Damascus that's currently running the country. And when it first happened, if you remember, Israel went with IDF and just bombed these terrorist groups that were pushing into that area, Sweda, right when the collapse happened. They did a kind of a preemptive strike, which really, I believe, saved probably saved that whole region. Aside from the massacres and the fact that they keep getting hit multiple times, the Druze are really, and the Christians in that area are really patrolling the areas. They're really stepping up that whole next level. And for us, we're working to get permission to train the Druze and the Christians with our team of SF Special Forces teams in, if Lord willing, we're able to get that accomplished in the IDF controlled zone of Hadar and train these guys so they can actually be effective security forces with the most recent technology and abilities to be able to defend their village, to defend their homes and their people, and keep themselves protected. So if you pay attention to what was recently put out there, it's crazy. Israel's doing the right thing, right? So when you see these people screaming, Gaza, Gaza, free Palestine, I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. Free Palestine from Hamas, right? But what they're not telling you is that Israel, after so many bombardments and terrorist attack, had to go in there and clean that stuff up. And if you're following that narrative, but you're not on the ground seeing the amount of humanitarian aid, medical support that's coming for the people that are there, Hamas is killing people if they try to leave, right? If you're trying to leave some of these towns, you're getting shot in the back, And so you have to eradicate that type of control and terror within those areas. But Israel's out there. I mean, there's so much aid that's sitting on the ground that's not being distributed by those because Hamas, again, is controlling many of those corridors still. And I mean, I always tell people, don't believe what you see, don't believe what you hear. This is a time that God calls us to have discernment. And if I hadn't been on the ground in multiple scenarios and seeing how the narrative is spun, including I was at the ground for January 5th and 6th, and just seeing how they put on a great production with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have believed the narrative. So the same thing that's happening in Gaza and the same thing that's happening in Syria, right? You don't see it on mainstream news, right? Why aren't they talking about the Christian and Druze in Sweda? Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative, right? It's a Muslim movement, and it's happening in Europe. It's happening in South America, and they don't talk about it. They don't talk about the thousands, like 50,000 Nigerians, Christian Nigerians that were slaughtered. They're just rolling through these towns in Africa by these Islamic extremists. They don't talk about that.
And it's happening right here in America, Steve. I think it's happening right here in America. We know there's sleeper cells. We know that's the hatred that they have towards our government, the hatreds that they have towards our Jesus. It's not going to go away. But it's good to know that there's people out there like you that are doing everything you can to get involved. Before we let you go, can you talk a little bit about your company, about what else you guys do? Because I think it's pretty cool the capabilities that you guys have to, go in and do complete mold remediation, flood remediation. But I've also known stories about you as the guy where if somebody gets stranded, from a flood, you're the guy that can contract a private helicopter to come in and rescue people. And you guys have been known to go into places where communications are torn down, bring in Tesla, link satellites, bring in sat phones to be able to help people at their most darkest hour. Your company shows up to bring light. Can you talk a little bit, and again, not to take away from what you guys were doing in Syria, but I want our guests to know that there is so much more that you are doing for people, and kind of where strategic response partners, originated, and what you guys have kind of grown into.
Yeah, I mean, our primary business, right? People go, "Wow, you're out there. How's that tie into what you do?" We're a disaster management and response company, so it's made up a team of first responders, and we work mostly around critical infrastructure. So creating hospitals, ports, airports, logistics centers, places that can't go down. So we put the plans together, very comprehensive plans, but like all plans, they don't work unless somebody's manning the ship. So in a hurricane scenario, we're there 3 days before, 3D model the entire complex, look at all the mechanicals, make sure that everything's battened down. If there's containers, we're shrink wrapping. If trees that would block walkways, we're clearing the trees. We're bringing in fuel cells. We're bringing in temp power, distro. We're bringing in entire base camp, sanitation, water, fuel, laundry services, food services to keep that facility operational and going. We ride out those hurricanes, even Cat 5s at ground zero. So many times, like one of the hospitals we did, the roof came off. We did a whole shrink wrap swale on the 4th floor during the hurricane, diverted water from the roof off the surgery centers where the ERs were down on the 3rd floor below us, and diverted water from the power panels to keep that hospital operational. And they did 17 life-saving surgeries as a result of that. So we're privately contracted in those spaces. We're extremely effective. It's almost like a private FEMA that actually works,
It's funny.
And then again, like the stuff with Helene, right? That was a situation we weren't contracted, but God called, and we simply answered the call with the whole team of paramedics. One of my main guys, the helicopter pilot, has his own bird. And I knew right from when I started to see how it was going to unfold that we need to get rotors in and out of those areas to do the rescue missions, distribute all the Starlinks. And we stood up Hickory Airport, Foothill, and then we also stood up Samaritan's Purse Airport, and we did with a group collectively over 500 rescue missions and delivered over 1,000 Starlinks, thanks to Elon Musk and thanks to the satellite phone store. Tina Blanco's always been there to get us additional Starlinks. And it's also like in the private fire, like with the Malibu fires, Palisades fires. Since 2003, I'm very big on predictive modeling. So renting these pumps, these fire pumps that go into these pools that are standalone, and then actually putting a team of firefighters on that person's property to man the hoses that we maintain this equipment. So if roads get blocked off, my guys will hike up into the hills, roll the stuff, drop them into the pools, and they're there to hold that fire line and protect that structure for the client. So that's the SRP, strategic response side of it. And a huge part of it, the front end, is of course the medical side, right? The first part of it people need is medical response. The rescues in floodwaters, extractions, those type of things is on the front end. The back end is the restoration, environmental, remediation, reconstruction. Because like Sueda, I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to go there for the photo op, right? I'm not the NGO that wants to get money for, look at me, look what I'm doing. I don't give two shits about that. You're going to have to edit that part. I don't care about that, Mike. I care about, let's fix the problem, right? Let's fix the problem. Let's go in and fix those churches, fix the infrastructure for the water, this water system that got blown up. Let's go in there and train the Druze and the Christians to be able to stand up their own area so that the Druze are empowered and it's their place, not ours. Let's bring the resources in to restore and recover that area, right? And it always starts spiritually, man. If you don't do the spiritual work and the traumas that they're going to be dealing with, I mean, this is where the Christian community has to. These are God's children. We have to be there for them because there may be a day that we have that cry out and no one's going to be on our side to come for us. So really got to just always know that we are one wherever we're at in the nation.
I love that. That was very, very well said. And last but not least, if there's anything that people want to do to be able to support your work, I don't know if you do release any Substacks, if you have any socials. I can imagine that come September, RFK Jr. is going to be needing to hire your guys' company in addition to what HHS has for security, because I have a feeling the libtard wearing blue haired freaks are going to lose their ever loving mind when he releases this autism report. I think he's going to need a lot of protection because I think this whole country's eyeballs are going to bug out of their skull plate. But before you do go, if you have any social handles, if you're on Twitter, or if you have any Substacks, or even just your website where people can reach you, support your work, or if they ever need to reach out to you in a time of need, go ahead and share that with our listeners.
Yeah, if it's disaster response management planning, and even if any of your listeners are looking for a plan, they can email me, steve@srp24.com. They can email me, and I'll be happy to send them. Actually, yeah, send it to response, RESPONSE @SRP24, and request a personal disaster plan. I'll send them the template and kind of what we use as far as what I pack as gear so that it's an all scenarios type planning, because it's not just hurricanes, floods, earthquakes. It's a lot of stuff that you may be caught in that's outside your area. Website is SRP24. They can follow us on different social media. And then if it's private security, whether it's they're traveling somewhere, they need executive protection, close protection, Mexico, Africa, we have operators that are part of our team anywhere in the country. So executive protection, that would be under Sabre Team, SABRETEAM, saberteam.com, Sabre Defense Team. And they could follow us on that. And Byron Rogers is my partner, runs the security side of it. And last but not least, as you know, me and my wife founded the nonprofit Autism Health. And we have a huge autism walk coming up September 6th in Huntington Beach. And there's multiple people that have set up their own walks. That's going to be next week, Saturday, not this weekend, next weekend. And there's a large group out of Virginia, another group out of Utah, another group out of Florida. And so people really, kind of coming together. So if any of your audience is open to just becoming a reoccurring donor, 100% of the proceeds goes to the services for these families. We're doing a huge stem cell study. I think you might have talked to Tracy about that, my wife. And then Bobby Kennedy, speaking of, is signing these bats, that they donated, and he's going to be signing the bats for them, which is really cool. So raising funds for it, and again, I love the work that he's doing. He's a close personal friend, it's a tough time in America. We have to keep being that voice of reasoning. And I always tell people, don't get angry. Just come from a space of love. Your only way you're going to ever get through to anybody is operating from a space of love. And just always ask them if they're open to some new information. That's always the way to, and if they are, you have to ask permission. And if they say they are, you have a segue there, but just come from a space of love, not judgment, not criticism. We get much further that way in life.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do is just continue to love and know that everything is in Jesus's hands. It's already there. Everything that was promised to us, we just have to believe, and we have to continue to seek the kingdom and, get rid of the old creation and let the new creation be inside of you. And we want to just, God bless you. Thank you so much for coming. We do have to run to a very quick commercial break, and then we're going to be bringing in Dr. Brian Hooker, who I know you're very familiar with because he's worked with Bobby for quite some while, and they've done a lot of good things, written some books together. And Steve, thank you so much for carving time out of your day, and thank you so much for what you were doing there for the Druze and helping the Christians in Syria. And more importantly, thank you for being boots on the ground and an advocate for the people who are needy and people who need help. and never saying no when God asks you to donate your time or your money. And also for your warrior wife, who we absolutely love. We've had her on the show a multitude of times, and we will have you back on to do a follow-up on the affair of Syria. And we look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for putting the truth out to the audience, from ground zero. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Till the day I die, I will always continue to do that. Guys, we're going to run to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be bringing in Dr. Brian Hooker, and we're going to be talking about fluoride and the lies behind it. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Vocal, the free speech social app that gives you a platform to amplify your voice. Speak freely, connect boldly, and be part of a growing movement for truth, faith, and freedom. Want to know what's happening right now? The Now Playing feature shows you exactly who's live and what's streaming in real time. Check out the show's feed, a non-stop lineup including Lindell TV News 24/7, shows and on-demand programming all in one place. Connect with your favorite host and never miss a show. Explore the featured page for quick access to Lindell TV's top shows. Follow your favorites and watch their newest content flow right into your feed. And when they go live on Vocal, you can join the live chat and be part of the action. Ask questions, share your thoughts, even help shape future shows. Stay informed on issues around securing our elections by following your state's Cause of America account. Join a group and connect on a deeper level, from faith and freedom to the future of our nation. Go to vocal.com or download the app today and be a part of the mission to save our country.
Hey guys, Maha Mike here. I've got some exciting news for you. Our new partners at Farm Easy Bank are leading the way in affordable, trustworthy healthcare, bringing an impressive lineup of generic medications at prices that your family can actually afford. Not only that, but they are now offering ivermectin and fenbendazole, two compounds that are gaining attention, and unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you've probably heard about their incredible benefits. You can trust every single order that you get from Farm Easy Bank. Why? Because they come from reputable, reliable sources, and their commitment to quality means you get the same effectiveness you'd expect from the big box store without the outrageous price tags. In fact, you can save up to 80%. That's right, 80% compared to traditional pharmacy prices. On top of that, they offer fast, discreet shipping to the comfort of your home. And the best part is, you can use the coupon code MAHA2025 for 20% off any order over $199. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Take control of you and your family's health today. And stock up, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So go to Farm Easy Bank, that's PharmEasyBank.com/Maha and start your wellness journey with trusted support and serious savings.
You know that I'm a big fan of a conspiracy theory, as well as I am a big fan of a conspiracy fact. And that's what we're going to be diving into today, guys. Imagine if I told you that a known neurotoxin, one with documented links to lower IQ, thyroid disruption, and even skeletal damage, was being added to your drinking water every single day. Now imagine this. The very agencies entrusted with protecting your health never completed long-term safety trials on this substance. No randomized studies, no adequate testing on children, no adequate testing on infants and pregnant women, and yet it's treated as if it's beyond a good question to ask. That substance is fluoride. Today, I'm not here to debate opinions. I'm here to show you the science. Science that's been buried, studies that were never done, and the consequences of a policy that started with good intentions, but no real safety data. The question isn't whether fluoride works. The question is it safe? And the truth is, no one in power can honestly say yes, which is why we're bringing in Dr. Brian Hooker. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing today? It's good to see you.
I'm fluoride free, man. I think Dr. Group from Global Healing would be very, very happy. I took my mold free, toxin free coffee, and I brewed it with distilled water, so no fluoride.
Right.
And I think that this topic is going to open up a lot of people's eyes because so many people are showering in fluoridated water, they're drinking fluoridated water, and they're using fluoride products to clean their chompers.
Absolutely. In so many municipalities and so many communities around the United States, they add a concentration that's supposed to be at about 0.7 milligrams per liter of, I believe, sodium fluoride. I know it's fluoride. I think that the other salt that they conjugate with it is sodium in order to make it a compound. But this level of fluoride alone is toxic and has been linked to lower IQ scores in children. And so, it's a nasty compound. I first encountered fluoride in college when I was using it to etch glass. And I looked at the safety requirements around. This was a hydrogen fluoride that we were using. The safety requirements around hydrogen fluoride, and I sort of marveled, like, wow, this is in toothpaste. What's there? There's sort of a contradiction of terms here. Like, why am I so careful with this right now in a chemistry laboratory when I'm sticking it in my mouth and I'm brushing my teeth in it? And I did live in a municipality at that point in time that did fluoridate their water. There's a disconnect here.
And you've got Utah and Florida. I thought there was more than that, so I'm actually a little bummed that it's not more than that. But Utah and Florida have become the first and second states to ban outright fluoride in public water systems, with the enforcement already taking place. And then you've got legislative that's being done in Ohio, South Carolina, Montana, North Dakota, Tennessee, and New Hampshire, where they've seen proposals or discussions. Why are not more states, Dr. Brian, banning this? Why are they not looking at this as the neurotoxin that it is, knowing that there has been no long-term safety done on children, done on pregnant women? And do we want a population of dumbed-down people who can't think for themselves? Maybe we do. Maybe that's why fluoride has been around for so long.
It doesn't make any sense. I think that there is an issue with individuals not ready to take responsibility for the fact that they've been poisoning a generation of children, a generation of adults, a generation of anybody that has consumed that water, that has consumed it in toothpaste. That this does neurological harm. It also, as you said before, harms the thyroid gland. It can deplete minerals from bone. And so, there are a lot of people that I saw Secretary Kennedy being questioned about this. I think it was the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. One of the senators who was a dentist questioned him, and made a flippant remark like, well, when I start seeing more cavities and, more kids with bad teeth, I guess I'll blame you. And Bobby said, well, if they really want their fluoride, they can simply use a fluoride toothpaste and spit it out, or use a fluoride rinse. Now, I wouldn't even recommend that, but it's very, very preposterous that people would cling on to something like putting a known neurotoxin in municipal water supplies. So like you say, Mike, they could dumb down a generation.
Well, and it begs the question that you could go and see generations and generations of tribes that live in the Amazon rainforest that have virtually no teeth decay. And
Right.
You look at how our food supply has been poisoned. They have no access to fluoride. They have no access to toothpaste. But yet you go there, they may not have the prettiest, brightest white chompers. There might be some teeth gaps. They don't have access to orthodontics, but they're not getting routine root canals. They're not getting fluoridated water, and yet there's virtually no infections and no disease, in no cavities in their mouths, because they're not consuming hundreds of pounds of sugar. They're eating biblically. They're eating what they catch in their snare traps. They're eating what the hunter-gatherer goes and brings back, right? They're eating the deer. They're eating what they catch out in the wild, and the fruits and vegetables that they're growing in their own region. And I think more and more that we start to realize that it's the diet that is affecting. These parents wouldn't even need to be convinced or sold this dream of fluoride if they weren't giving Becky Sue a bunch of processed cereal and stuff that her teeth enamel is getting destroyed, because we're not supposed to be eating these substances because they're man-made. They're ultra-processed. So what's the war that needs to be waged? How do we educate more people on the dangers of fluoride? I think that right there is a question that the audience needs to know, is how can we bring a safer alternative to putting a fluoride, a known neurotoxin, in our child's mouth or in their mouth rinse?
I believe that what you've just said is money, that it's a two-pronged approach. People need to know that the levels of fluoride that they consume in the drinking water are neurotoxic. When you look at women who are drinking fluoridated water during pregnancy versus those women who are not drinking fluoridated water during pregnancy, and the way that they test this is the level of fluoride that's coming out in their urine. Because fluoride is an atom, it's not processed in the body. It's not like it goes away. It takes a nuclear reaction to go away, and by goodness, that does not happen in our body. And so they look at a difference of 0.7 milligrams per liter, again, magic number, and they see myriad neurological disorders, developmental disorders, behavioral disorders in the children that are in the high fluoride group. In addition to that, they looked at communities in China that had high fluoride exposure versus low fluoride exposure. The difference in IQ points was 7 IQ points. That's a lot. That's taking somebody from an IQ of 107 to 100, or 100 to 93, or 87 to 80. That is a significant drop in intelligence. And on top of that become behavioral problems, frustrations, and then other issues. And then the second thing that we need to educate people on is the dangers of processed sugar, which is basically cocaine for your brain. It is highly neurostimulatory. And it causes not only the big high that children have, more of a hyperactivity high, and then the sugar crash that comes after the hyperactivity high, because you're manipulating the insulin levels in your body and your bloodstream, and so that causes behavioral issues and sheer frustration in children that they don't really know what's going on in their bodies. Children that get ho-hos for dessert for lunch. What happens to them in the afternoon after they consume those ho-hos? They hit the sugar high, then they hit the sugar low, and they're trying to learn all at the same time. It makes absolutely no sense. And besides sugar, people are like, okay, well, I won't give them sugary beverages. I won't give them sugary snacks. Carbohydrates, any type of carbohydrate that is really strongly present in the body. I'm sorry, guys, Cheez-Its are not natural. That turns directly to sugar as soon as it hits the bloodstream. And so we need to look at processed foods in general. We need to flip the food pyramid back on its head. It is absolutely wrong-headed. It was politically influenced. I'm so glad that Secretary Kennedy is changing that. But we have to rethink everything in our diet in order to give our children the best landscape, the best terrain for them to learn.
I always run back to it because I know it's so silly, but I thought it was so funny that I'll never forget. There was an episode of South Park where they were like talking about how Michelle Obama had destroyed the food chart and focused too much on grains and all these other things. And Cartman, one of the main character, he goes to solve the crisis in America. He goes, we have to flip the chart. He goes, what do you mean flip the chart? They're like, you mean healthy fats and oils and meat should be at the top of the diet? And he's like, yes, input it. And all of a sudden, like the obesity in America started to go down once we got away from processed sugars and grains and all the GMO, and it went into like fats, oils, butters. And I'm like, that's some ketogenic people out there are probably clapping their hands right now. And there is some truth to it, when it's healthy, when it's good grass-fed, grass-finished.
Exactly.
It's amazing what happens when you flood your body with the things that God put here, not Cheez-Its. And a little bit back to what I always go to when you go through the Amish. How did the Amish survive with no fluoride in their water? How are their children flourishing when they have the least access to vaccines? But yet you go and these children are, toe for toe. They're on pace for development with other children in America. And in some cases, they're even better because of the farm work, the hands-on, the experience that they get in raising chicken and processing cattle and building things with their hands. But yet you go and, people say, oh, there's no major studies. But yet when you talk to any independent journalist that goes out and goes into these Amish communities, autism is almost next to nil compared to the rest
Right.
of the United States developed countries and cities where we follow the standard wellness care. And the same thing goes with fluoride. You go in there to these Amish communities and you don't see their teeth rotting out of their mouth, and yet they're having wells on their property, and they have very minimal exposure to toxins because they use a lot of their own herbs and essential oils instead of big pharmaceutical like Bayer, Monsanto pesticides. And yet their children's teeth aren't falling out of their mouths. How do you explain that, Dr. Brian Hooker? How are they alive and doing well without fluoride when the rest of us are bathing in it?
We have devolved away from all of these natural techniques, all of these ways that you can deal with illness, and we've devolved away from community. I was down in Seminole, Texas, which is a hub of the Mennonite community there, over 20,000 Mennonites. And this was evidently the epicenter of the measles outbreak and the closeness of the community. If something worked within the community, then news of that spread like wildfire. And so when they were on to something, they would share that with their neighbors. When they found something that was a natural remedy or a natural solution, then they would share that with their neighbors. They were, and they were sharing natural measles remedies, natural things that would take care of the measles to take care of their kids, because they lived in community, and they did not. They did not have processed food. They did not have fluoridated water. Most of them lived on land where they had their own wells, and they had well water. But exactly like you said, Mike, you didn't see teeth falling out of their head. You didn't see them dying of severe illnesses. The only deaths that we saw were the two girls that died in hospital, and those were iatrogenic deaths. They were treated incorrectly by the medical community because of measles derangement syndrome, when both of them died of bacterial pneumonia. And, the more that they stayed within community and the more that they shared within community, the better off they were.
Well, real quick, before I let you go, I want your reaction to it because it'll be good for our reels. Let's run that 2-minute clip. And I think we have a clip here from, I think Dr. Bill actually testified that there are 0 studies on fluoridated water. Let's run that video and then have you react to that.
Good morning. I'm Bill Osmondson. I'm a dentist. The law is very clear. The board is like a jury, like judges, and you are to assure the public that the water is safe to drink. That means to positively, confidently tell the public that yes, you can drink the water. It's safe for the fetus, it's safe for the infant, it's safe for the child, it's safe for the adult. It's safe. That's your job. I was out at Washington, D.C. to the FDA giving a presentation, and I reminded them that there is not a single safety study. Now, the department is going to tell you, well, we're not sure about harm. That's a complete different subject. You're to have safety studies. You're to assure safety, and there's not one. Under oath, the FDA, the CDC, the EPA, and the National Sanitation Foundation were all asked, do you know what the safe level of fluoride is to ingest? Do you know what the toxic level is? They knew neither one. They don't have any studies on that. Neither do you. Neither does the department. No one has safety studies that would be acceptable to the FDA. And you're to assure safety. Stay laser focused on safety through all of the talk. Stay laser focused on safety. Insist that you have safety studies from the department to prove what they're saying. They don't have them. I don't have them. None of the federal agencies have it.
No safety tests were run. Nobody has it. They don't exist. And yet there's 48 states that are still pumping this into the water supply.
That is correct. Now, the National Toxicology Program has not done any safety studies. It would be in their purview to do safety studies. They did what was called a meta-analysis, however, where they looked what was in the open literature. This analysis was published in 2024, and this is our own national toxicology program from our own government that's telling us that fluoridated water is good for you. And they said they found that IQ went down by about 1.7 points for every 1 milligram per liter of additional fluoride that they found in the urine of kids who were exposed to fluoride. So there is a direct correlation between fluoride exposure and lower IQ. It can't get any simpler than that. We really need to out and out ban this substance.
100%. I would not disagree with you. Before you leave, let our followers know, how can they reach you? How can they support your work? I know you've got a Substack. Leave us with those little tidbits, and then we will continue to share these clips about why you need to stay away from fluoride and how dangerous it is for your brain.
Well, I have a webcast on chd.tv called Doctors and Scientists. Very glad to have that show. Also glad for opportunities to come on Maha with Mike. Mike, it's always a pleasure. I always love being on your show. In fact, that you're just such a good brother. Thank you so much for spreading the truth and spreading the truth of the gospel. You just can't ask for any more than that. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Twitter and Instagram at Brian Hooker, PhD. Facebook, just look for Dr. Brian Hooker. I'm on there. A lot of my information gets featured in Children's Health Defense daily newspaper, The Defender. Go to children'shealthdefense.org, follow the links to Defender, and check out the science page while you're there.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you. We know that God works in mysterious ways, and God works wonderful miracles for those inside the kingdom and even for those who aren't. Sometimes prayer is so powerful, can even affect people that didn't know that you were praying for them. So let's make America healthy again. Let's make America holy again. Brian Hooker, thank you so much for being such a dear friend to the show. And until next time, guys, make yourselves healthy again. Maha Mike signing out. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Self Wellness.